Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Elena. Today I want to talk about what it's like living with bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed with bipolar when I was 13 years old, so I have lived with bipolar for the last 15 years, and I just want to share my thoughts and experiences with you. Before we get into it, I want to let you know that I will be posting a new video every Friday. So if you like what you see today and want to stay up to date with my content, please subscribe down below. Also, if you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, please leave a comment down below. Seeing as how I'm still pretty new at this, I would just want to know where you guys are at, what you think of my content, and what I can do to improve. Alright, thank you so much, and let's get into the video. Bipolar disorder, also known as manic depression, is a mental illness that brings severe high and low moods, as well as changes in sleep, energy, thinking, and behavior. That's pretty much the simplest way you can define bipolar disorder. It definitely is a constant back and forth between high moods and low moods, manic episodes and depressive episodes. When I am in a depressive episode, I never know how long it's going to last or how bad it's going to get. For those of you that have dealt with depression in your life, I'm sure you know that it's not an easy thing to go through, and it never really gets easier. That being said, you do kind of, I guess, get used to it. Over the years, going through so many of these episodes, at a certain point I had to accept that this is just how I am, how my brain works, and they're always going to come back. Like, it doesn't really matter how well I'm doing or how long I've been doing well. I always have to have that thought in my mind that depression is just around the corner, I guess. I never know what's going to trigger it. It could be honestly nothing. Sometimes I honestly can't even identify why. It's why I'm depressed again. And since I realized that my depressive episodes haven't necessarily gotten any easier, because depression sucks, but I have a better grasp and understanding of what I'm going through, and so I can make adjustments to my life during those times to make it a little more tolerable. So now when I'm going into a depressive episode, I typically can identify that that's what's happening relatively early on. I know what's coming is going to be very hard, but I have to remind myself that it's not going to last forever, that I've dealt with this before, and I know that it will be over eventually. Every time I go through a depressive episode, it feels like the worst one I've ever had. It doesn't matter how depressed I was last time or how bad the last episode was. It can't be this bad because I made it out of that one, and this one's still a question mark. But you can't gauge depression like that. No depression is worse or better than any other. Depression just always sucks. When I'm going through a depressive episode, I will tell my friends and family, hey, this is what's going on. Don't be surprised if for the next little bit I am maybe not as social, or I am not around as much, or I just know that I'm going to be alone a lot during this time. Life during depression is mostly just sleeping, eating, working, and existing, I guess. And those existing times are mostly watching TV, playing games. I spend a lot of time just laying in bed thinking, dozing in and out of sleep for hours. I've been known to sleep 18 hours a day, off and on. And sleeping is the closest thing to time travel that I'm ever going to be able to do. And when I'm depressed, all I want to do is get to the end. I just want time to pass. I want it to be over. I want to be happy again. So I sleep a lot. And then one day, without warning or sign, and I'll just have a thought. It could be anything, and it could be a thought that I've had hundreds of times, that I've made a decision to change something about my life, or I finally found that thing that was making me depressed this whole time and can now deal with it, and all of a sudden everything changes and I feel a little happy again. and that little bit of happiness explodes. So now let's talk about manic episodes. A completely different beast altogether. So through my teenage years, I just didn't really know what a manic episode looked like. I didn't know when I was having them. In fact, I kind of just thought that my bipolar was much more neutral, drop into depression, back up to neutral, and I didn't really have that manic. But once I got older, I was able to identify when I was having a manic episode. And once I figured that out, I was able to go back and pinpoint the points in my life that I had gone through those. And everything just made more sense after that. So I definitely have gone through more depressive episodes than manic episodes. However, they absolutely have happened. Almost every manic episode that I remember happening comes at the end of a depressive episode, where I spike from the lowest point to the highest point almost instantly. I think a lot of it is my brain overcorrecting and trying to make up for lost time or wasted time during the depression. From an outsider's perspective, it probably looks like I'm doing really well during these episodes. I'm getting a lot done. I typically get my whole life cleaned up and just look like I'm making huge changes, and I spend a ton of money during these episodes because I'm pretty much trying to make sure that this depression doesn't come back again, I guess. It's obviously a good thing to clean up your life and figure things out and cut out bad things. That's obviously a good thing. The problem with trying to change your life is that that's so much easier said than done. You can tell yourself all day, every day, that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and find a new job or start hitting the gym, and I'm going to eat better, and I'm going to come up with all these plans and all these things. When I go through the episodes, I actually do them for a little bit. But the hard part is continuing those habits and not going back to where I was before the depression in the first place. And that is not something I have been historically very good at doing. So once I hit the peak of my manic episodes, one of two things will happen. Either I will start slowly going back down to my neutral ground, my old self, where I'm falling back into old habits, or I've given up on the new habits that I've created, or I've gone complacent with life again until I realize that I've fallen so far from who I wanted to be, and it's right back into depression. The other way it can go is where something happens while I'm peaking, while I'm in my manic episode. Something bad happens. Like during one of my manic episodes, I maxed out all my credit cards buying all this stuff and didn't realize how much money I was spending, and then I'm in all this credit card debt now. And then there's no weaning off. It's just instant depression. Those typically are some of the worst depressions. The ones that I snap out of mania right back into depression, and I never get that buffer time of complacency. But it is relentless. When I'm not going through an episode, I live on a neutral ground. This is where I spend most of my time. This is when I'm living my life just like a normal person and going day to day, and don't have to worry about the fact that I have this debilitating disorder in my head because it's not overly present at the moment. I was never really happy in the neutral ground, but at least I wasn't depressed. At least I wasn't crying myself to sleep or ruining my life by maniacally trying to fix it. But I knew my complacency couldn't last forever, and eventually I was going to slide back down into depression. So while I'm in the neutral ground, I try to make the most of my time, maybe get a few good memories to help me through the next episode. And that's just how I thought it was going to be for me forever. I wasn't thrilled about that fact, but it's who I was. And if complacency was the best that bipolar was going to let me have, then I thought that I could live with that. But everything changed in 2020. In March 2020, the pandemic started. And with it, obviously, came a lot of challenges and a mental toll I had never experienced. During the majority of the pandemic, I was working as a bank teller, so I was still out at work every day, on the front lines, dealing with all of it, and it was extremely stressful. My responsibilities were increasing rapidly, and on top of that, I was stressing about the pandemic and missing my family and my friends. I did okay for a few months, but eventually it just took its toll, like it did on most people. And I ended up in, by far, the worst depressive episode I've ever been in. I didn't know what to do. I was so lost. And it went for about 4 months straight of not being able to escape this depression. On October 26th of 2020, I was really looking at my life up till that point and who I was and what I really wanted and what would make me happy. I always knew what would make me happy, but until October 26th, I would not acknowledge it. That was the day that I knew that I had to transition. The moment that I realized that I finally acknowledged that was the answer. I couldn't breathe. The feeling of joy that I felt in that moment was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I knew what I needed to do. So a few hours after I had done all this research, I was still thinking about it, obviously, and a thought crossed my mind, a really scary thought, and that was, is this just another manic episode? I had changed my life before that point during manic episodes, not anywhere near on the scale that I was planning on doing now. I was terrified that I was just going to fall back into my old ways. I knew that if I went through with this and I gave up on it, I don't know if I could ever recover from that. So I decided to sleep on it. The next morning I woke up and I was sure this was not a manic episode. When I start a manic episode, I'm not able to identify it because I just think that, oh cool, depression's over, I'm happy. The fact that I was thinking about it immediately showed that I was in a more level mind. And ever since that day, 9 months ago, I have not had a depressive episode or a manic episode or anything near it. Obviously, not every day is perfect, and I still have days where I feel a little bit down, but it's not the same. 9 months without an episode is the longest I've ever gone in my entire life. And it's also the first 9 months that I have lived as Elena. And I just can't not think that there's a connection there. What I feel has happened is the neutral ground that I had before no longer exists. It's gone. And I have a new neutral ground that's actually happy. It's who I am, and it's my normal everyday life, and it's incredible. Instead of defaulting back to it, it's now where I want to get to, and I always have that line. So we'll see. I know that my bipolar isn't cured. I still have that knowledge that another episode is likely around the corner at some point, but I'm not worried about it, and I know that I'll be able to get through it and get back to my new level ground and continue on with my life. I do want to end this video by saying that regardless of how difficult it is to live with this disorder, it is a part of who I am, and I love myself so much, and I love my brain, and I love who I am, and regardless of the ups and downs, I wouldn't change anything about my life up to this point. If you suffer from bipolar or depression or any mental illness, just know that you're not alone. it can feel that way sometimes, but there are incredible doctors out there and amazing supports online. Everyone has their people. You just gotta find them. I hope that this video resonates with some of you and helps you understand what it's like living with bipolar. If you know someone that has bipolar disorder, just be patient with them. Let them know that you're there for them if they need them. If they need space, give them their space. We can be difficult sometimes, but we really do try. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, give it a thumbs up and a share. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date. I will be posting a new video next Friday. So goodbye. I will see you on Friday.